Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're taking a look today at the Lexar C20i, and this is a little external storage cable as well as a charger for your iPhone and iPad. And the way this works is like many other similar devices that you can plug it into your computer, copy some files over to it, and then plug it into your iPhone or iPad and play those files back from its internal storage. And this cable actually doubles as a charging cable too, so when you have it plugged into both devices, it'll charge your iOS device, which is pretty neat. Now the problem with these things has always been that they promise that you can play all your movies from it, and that's true if you have movies that aren't protected by digital rights management or DRM. And if you are a customer of any of the online services like iTunes or Amazon or Google, you'll know that you can't actually move those files to these devices and play them back. So it's going to be very limited unless you know how to rip movies off of your Blu-rays or DVDs to get a file that is not encrypted and copy protected. So immediately there's some limitation to how useful this is. So you want to be careful when you're looking at this, that if you don't know how to strip your media of DRM, you are not going to get very far with this thing because it won't play much back because of all that encryption. So keep that in mind as we go through the rest of the review here. Now I do want to mention at the outset that this came in free of charge through the Amazon Vine program. However, I've had no direct contact with Lexar or Amazon. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own. Nobody is paying for this review, and nobody is reviewing this video before it is posted. So let's get in and see how this works. You'll notice right now I've got it plugged into both the computer and the iPhone, and when it's plugged in like this configuration right now, it is not able to put any data onto the phone. So right now it's only in the computer mode, but it is charging the phone while it is plugged in here. Once I eject it from the computer and then unplug it and plug it back into the phone, I can then access the storage while it is disconnected from the computer. So you can't do two things at once. All right, so here's what the Lexar C20i looks like on my computer. It shows up like any USB flash drive would. So we have it accessible to us here. It'd be a very similar process in Windows. And I have a couple of video files from one of my daughter's Leapfrog DVDs. I'm going to just drag those over to the Lexar device here and let those copy over. It takes a little bit. The write speed is not the fastest on this device. I'll do a benchmark in a minute. One of the things I noticed on here right off the bat was that they had it formatted for what's called the FAT32 file system, which is kind of getting a little bit old in the sense that it doesn't allow files larger than 4 gigabytes in size. And normally that's not a big problem for DVD movies that you're taking off of a DVD, but if you want to do some high def content, it will be an issue because a lot of those files are 5, 6, 8 gigabytes or more. So I reformatted the drive for the exFAT file system, which is readable and writable on both the Mac and Windows, and it still worked on both of those platforms and is still readable on my phones and iPads also. But it's just, I think they should have formatted it with that to start versus using an older file system that's not so compatible with HD movie files here. So you'll notice that I have a Star Wars The Force Awakens file. This is an iTunes file that I got legitimately from the iTunes store, and you'll see what happens when we try to play that back in a minute. But here we go. We've got the two DVD rip files on my Lexar here. I'm just going to eject this now, and we're going to take a look on my iPhone and see what happens. All right, so we've got the Lexar connected to my phone now. I'm going to tap on the external storage icon here, and we'll see that those Leapfrog files are here. So I can tap on there, and now you'll see that file will start playing back, and you can get all of your favorite numbers to appear on screen for your kid when you're on the road. Now what's interesting is that while you can play back files that are on the phone to your Apple TV via AirPlay, you cannot do AirPlay or Chromecasting from this app at all. The other problem with it is that it doesn't keep bookmarks either, so if you leave the video and come back to it later, you have to find your way back to where you left off. So there's no bookmarking, kind of limited playback to other devices as well. I think you might be able to do the AirPlay mirroring for the whole device and maybe get the video file to play back on external devices that way. Now you notice here we still have that Star Wars The Force Awakens file, and if I tap on that, you'll see we'll get a warning message here in a second after it tries to load it to say that the app is not authorized to play the file, and that is it. So we can't actually play all the DRM protected content we bought off of this because it just doesn't allow you to do that. What I want to do real quick before we move over to my iPad is just copy a 4K file that I shot with this phone. So I'm going to go over to my video option here and pull down the menu for the camera roll, and it's a very clunky interface, and you'll see more of this on the iPad in a second. I'm going to go over to my recently added section here and just grab maybe 2 of these files here and just copy them over. Unfortunately, there's a couple of steps that you have to do here to get this to work, but we'll just copy that stuff over. And once that is done, we will head over to my iPad and see how well it can play back these larger movie files. All right, so we're going to take this now and plug it into my iPad, and you'll notice something here when I load the software up is that it doesn't detect the landscape mode here. And this is, storage companies should not be making apps because every one of these apps for these external storage devices all stink. And this one kind of stinks because although you can play back the media, it is really clunky, and you've got to deal with this crazy stuff here like the landscape stuff not being recognized here. So I'll just have to hold it in my hand the old-fashioned way. So we'll go over to that movie file that we copied over, and it'll start playing back the file, and that the read speed is good enough that you can play back a 4K file without any lag or anything like that. So if you reformat this and you have big files, I think you should be fine playing those back again, provided you don't have DRM issues. Some things that I noticed about this that were kind of annoying is that when you go over to something like the video section here, it doesn't always get the right tap here. So I think I'm clicking on Vimeo, but it's actually going to YouTube. So you really have to get onto the right thing when you tap on it to get everything to work. And these are all fixable problems, the formatting and all this clunkiness with the app. But I hate it when companies make stuff and it's not ready yet because they figure they can update it later. And this is the kind of stuff that just doesn't leave a friendly taste in my mouth as a consumer. Now, one of the interesting things about this is that if you load up the YouTube section and go and play a video from YouTube, what'll happen is something rather interesting is after the video is done playing, it's going to drop a copy of it onto the device. So you can actually get some offline playback without having to do anything. The only problem is that it's downloading the YouTube video as it's playing to your internal storage on your iPad or iPhone, and then you have to move it over after it's done. And I had no idea it was doing this until I went back into my video menu here and selected my internal storage to check that out. So the video here is just about done. When it hits the end here, I'm going to click back home, go back over to video, and if I go into in-app storage, I now have a YouTube folder. If I tap on that, we've got my video file that it just downloaded, and I could play it back here, or I can move back here and go to select it. And this is such an annoying interface here, and then move it over to the external storage, and it'll copy that M4V file over. So I do think you have to play the whole thing back, or at least initiate it long enough for it to download most of it before you can get offline access to it. But it is kind of interesting that you can go onto YouTube, watch your favorite channels, and download those videos onto a device for playing when you're on the road. As a YouTube creator, I'm a little bit nervous about that because it means we're not getting a monetizable view, but it's something that I think a lot of people might find convenient and is actually something unique that this little external storage device has that others don't. I did have my hopes up initially because when I clicked on the little menu here, I saw an option for My iTunes Video. However, when you tap on that, there's no content available. I do have iTunes videos on this device that I downloaded from iTunes. Doesn't see them. I don't know what it's supposed to do. Maybe this is a cat and mouse game they're playing with Apple, but at the moment that doesn't work at all. There is some ability to connect it up with Dropbox. You do have the ability to have it back up your photos when you plug it in. It'll also back up contacts and calendars also, but I would recommend using the iCloud or something like that. But if you don't want to use a cloud service, you could use this as your backup device and move files off of it onto your computer and vice versa. They do have some built-in apps on this app, so kind of an app within an app. So if I tap on my external storage here, I can click on Add and make a new text file, and we can just call it Memo perhaps and just write out test here and hit the button there, and it'll create a file that I can then either edit again or just copy back over to my computer. You can also make voice recordings too on here, so I can go over a voice recording here, click on this thing. I can start recording this little statement I'm making right now, hit pause, click save, and that file will then get saved onto the memory stick and I can transfer it over later. So kind of a neat little thing that they've added onto this. It still doesn't make up for the fact that it doesn't work in landscape mode. What's funny though is if you start playing back a movie file and then put it into landscape mode, it does work. So the interface is not landscapable yet, but the video playback is. Now while this is a USB 3 flash drive, the write speeds are not all that impressive. I'm seeing roughly about 20 megabytes per second or so for writing files to the drive. The read speeds aren't bad at around 70 megabytes per second or so, so it does take a little bit longer to write things to it, but it is fast enough, I think, to play most of the higher-end video formats that might be out there. The biggest issue, though, is that I think a lot of people buy these things thinking it's going to solve all their problems related to getting their media off of their device and onto something external so they can watch movies on the go. And unfortunately, it doesn't really accomplish that for most people because of the digital rights management. This is not Lexar's fault or any of their competitors' fault, just the way the movie industry likes to restrict content. So I think you'll have to learn how to use Handbrake or make MKV or something and learn how to get those movies off of the discs that you own to really get the flexibility to use this thing the way I think a lot of people would buy this to use it. So you may want to do some research on that and get things going there so you can kind of have some control over your media. So that is the Lexar C20i, and this is Lon Seidman. Thanks for watching. This channel is brought to you by my Patreon supporters, including gold level supporter Shabib. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/S.